It took exactly 34 seconds to completely destroy the largest flying machine ever built. While that catastrophic fire was the physical cause, the fuse for this disaster was lit years earlier by an international political dispute. Look at the massive, heavy hull of this 1930s ocean liner. If you wanted to cross the Atlantic back then, you had to spend 5 miserable days on a ship like this, likely fighting seasickness. Or you could spend 2.5 days floating quietly above the clouds. By the mid-1930s, these vessels had already logged millions of miles of successful travel. For the world's elite, these Zeppelins were the proven, reliable standard for transoceanic flight, trusted by the public, engineered for supreme safety, a floating luxury hotel. How did it become a deadly inferno in under a minute? This silhouette shows a machine that stretched over 800 feet long. The Hindenburg was an engineering marvel that easily dwarfed 3 standard football fields laid end to end. Inside that massive frame, the entire experience was designed purely for luxury. Passengers sat calmly at dining tables like these, drinking coffee and looking out slanted windows at the ocean far below. This cross-section reveals the fatal compromise. Above the passenger deck, millions of cubic feet of highly flammable hydrogen kept the ship aloft. Engineers knew it was explosive, and a safe alternative existed. Why surround a luxury hotel with explosives? The engineers who originally designed the Hindenburg planned from the very beginning to fill its massive cells with helium. Helium is a lighter-than-air gas with one incredible advantage: it does not burn. But as this document shows, a massive political roadblock stood in their way. The United States controlled nearly the entire global supply of usable helium. Fearing how Nazi Germany might weaponize airships for their military, the U.S. government restricted exports through the Helium Control Act. Blocked from the American helium supply, German engineers had no choice. To generate enough lift to keep something this large in the air, they had to pivot to a gas that was cheap and extremely buoyant, but dangerously flammable. The German government utilized their new flagship as a massive, floating piece of propaganda. Look at the immense swastikas painted directly onto the tail fins of the moored ship. The Hindenburg was built to project German engineering and ambition across the globe. Grounding the ship until they could secure a safe fuel source would have been an international embarrassment. In the end, political optics simply overrode basic engineering safety. On the evening of May 6, 1937, the Hindenburg approached New Jersey to complete a routine transatlantic crossing. A heavy storm system in the area had charged the atmosphere with static electricity. After waiting for conditions to improve, the crew began their standard docking procedure, dropping heavy, wet mooring lines down to the naval ground crew below. In this wireframe model, a snapping structural wire punctures a gas cell, pooling hydrogen near the vents. Grounding the wet mooring lines charged the frame, building a massive electrical gap with the static-soaked skin. A single spark jumped that gap, instantly igniting the hydrogen. The fire wasn't a mystery. It was the exact mathematical consequence of flying a politically compromised hydrogen design through an ordinary thunderstorm. Given the sheer speed of the fire and the collapse, the casualty rate presents a surprising statistical twist. 62 of the 97 people on board survived by jumping from the windows as the ship settled. But that high survival rate completely failed to register with the public. And that was due to the presence of one man standing on the airfield, radio broadcaster Herbert Morrison. Morrison had been sent to record what everyone assumed would be a routine arrival. Instead, through this microphone, he captured the destruction in real time. His raw, unscripted audio caught a professional voice cracking with genuine human horror. Rather than reading a distant, objective newspaper article the next morning, families sitting in their living rooms heard the grief exactly as the flames spread. Because people could listen to the terror unfold raw and unedited, the tragedy permanently linked the idea of passenger airships with inescapable death in the global consciousness. Public confidence in lighter-than-air travel evaporated instantly. The era of the commercial passenger Zeppelin essentially ended that exact evening on the New Jersey airfield. Global investment pivoted sharply. Governments and companies abandoned the massive floating giants and poured their resources into developing small, sleek, fixed-wing aircraft like this one. With the airship industry effectively dead, the world's aeronautical research shifted entirely toward engine efficiency and aerodynamic lift for airplanes. This concentrated effort pushed the development of metal airframes and high-powered engines that would eventually make transoceanic flight faster and safer than a Zeppelin ever could have been. The Hindenburg is a reminder that when political optics dictate engineering safety, the resulting compromise eventually has to be paid for on the ground.